When we think of knights, we imagine heroes clad in shining armor, charging into battle or rescuing damsels in distress. What we see is an image of power, courage, and valor. We also see something that seems like a paradox, a clumsy giant trapped in heavy metal. To many today, armor is the image of a hero stuck in a prison of his own protection, unable to move or think beyond the next mouthful of porridge. But the real story is different. It's the tale of how medieval armor was made, how it allowed freedom of movement while offering protection, and why people remain fascinated by it even today. First, let's talk about the materials used to make armor. Iron and steel. Early armor was often made from softer iron, but as smelting techniques advanced, armorers worked with hardened steel. The trick was to balance toughness and flexibility. Picture it like this. A thick slab of steel is strong, but it's stiff and unbending. Now take a thin sheet of steel, it's more flexible, but not as strong. So armorers sought a middle ground, a perfect mix of hardness and flexibility that would hold its shape yet absorb the shock of battle. They developed new methods to refine and forge steel, experimenting with heat treatment and hammering techniques to achieve the ideal balance. Through trial, error, and experience, they produced plates with remarkable protective properties. Mail chainmail. This style dominated the early Middle Ages. Mail was created by linking thousands of small metal rings together, usually made of iron or steel. These rings were either riveted or welded shut, forming a continuous network of interlocking discs. Each ring was about 8 millimeters in diameter and 2 millimeters thick, requiring incredible patience and skill to weave them all together. Mail shirts could weigh around 15 pounds and consist of 20,000 or more rings. It took a skilled artisan weeks to make a single shirt. Mail was extremely flexible and excellent against cuts and slashes because the rings spread the impact across a wide area. However, it wasn't as protective against blunt force as solid metal armor. Leather and textiles. While metal provided defense, comfort and flexibility came from other sources. Padded undergarments, belts, straps, and linings made from leather and textiles like linen and wool softened blows and made armor wearable. These soft layers were essential. Not only did they protect against the rubbing and chafing of metal on skin, but they also cushioned impacts, reducing the force transmitted to the knight's body. Leather in particular was prized for its natural flexibility and resilience. These days, we often forget just how tough leather can be when properly treated. Think of it like the difference between a raw potato and one that's been boiled. The cooked potato might bruise easily, but the raw one will take more force to damage. Similarly, padded armor wasn't just about cushioning, it was also about distributing the force of impacts over a larger area. Brass, bronze, and silver. These metals were sometimes used to add extra durability to parts of the armor that needed it most. They were also used for decoration, heraldic devices, or just to add a touch of class. Now let's look at how armor was made. First, the metal was prepared by extracting iron or steel ready for the forge. Then the plates were hammered on an anvil while hot, a technique known as hot forging. This shaped each plate roughly. Next, the plates were shaped and fitted to the knight's body either by being hammered over forms or directly onto the knight. Once shaped, the plates were cut and trimmed to precise shapes and sizes. The armorer checked each plate meticulously, making sure everything fit together perfectly. When fully assembled, the armor looked like a second skin on the knight, moving with him as he moved. Rivets, straps, and hinges held the pieces together, balancing full coverage with flexibility. If you look closely at the design of the armor, you'll notice that it has lots of little details that show the genius of the armorers. They had to make sure that the helmets sat right on the shoulders, that the gauntlets fitted perfectly over the hands, and that the whole thing moved smoothly when the knight was active. It wasn't easy to make armor that was both protective and flexible, but the medieval armorers managed to do it. Before the final assembly, the plates went through a hardening and tempering process. This involved heating the steel to a high temperature and then cooling it rapidly, which made the steel tougher but also kept it from becoming brittle. This careful balancing act ensured that the steel could absorb the shock of a blow without breaking or bending out of shape. Tempering also helped preserve the steel's flexibility, allowing the armor to maintain its shape and continue protecting the knight. After tempering, the armor went through a final set of processes. The surfaces were polished to resist rust and enhance the visual appeal. Some armorers added engravings or gilded decorations, creating unique works of art. On the inside, armorers focused on functionality, adding leather linings, padding, and straps. These elements not only added comfort, but also served practical purposes like holding the armor in place or absorbing the shock of blows. Finally, the entire suit went through a series of fittings. During these sessions, the armorer fine-tuned the fit, adjusted the weight distribution, and ensured that every piece moved as intended. The goal was to create a seamless, second skin-like armor that allowed the knight to move freely and fight effectively. Now let's talk about some interesting facts about armor that you might not know. Many people ask if knights were really as helpless as they're shown in movies. The answer is no. Full plate armor usually weighed 15 to 30 kilograms, 33 to 66 pounds, which isn't much more than what modern soldiers carry in gear. With practice, a knight could put it on and take it off quickly. And thanks to clever design and weight distribution, they could run, mount a horse, kneel, and fight without any help. So the image of a knight stuck in his armor is mostly from exaggerated stories and later propaganda. What about the details that made armor work? One big question is how medieval armor allowed such freedom of movement. Let's break down 3 important features. First, articulation. Overlapping plates, often compared to roof tiles, let elbows, knees, hips, and shoulders bend without leaving dangerous gaps. Second, textile gussets. Cloth or leather inserts added extra freedom of movement. These were especially helpful in places where the leather armor was rigid, such as the elbows and knees. By inserting flexible material into the seams, armorers could allow for greater range of motion. Third, sliding rivets and hinges. Instead of plates being fixed in place, they could slide against one another. This meant that the armor could flex and move with the wearer. Lastly, weight distribution. Unlike modern armor that often distributes weight evenly across the torso, medieval armor shifted the weight onto the hips and torso. This made it easier to move around and fight without feeling like you were carrying a heavy backpack. Finally, fingered gauntlets. These gloves with articulated joints allowed knights to grip weapons with surprising dexterity. Some armorers even made special gauntlets for archers that had long, slim fingers. Overall, when a knight moved, the plates moved with him, covering important parts of his body and protecting him from harm. So now you know how medieval armor was made, what it was made of, and how it allowed knights to be both protected and free to move. We're passionate about bringing history to life and sharing it with people just like you who love to learn about the past. We have lots of other videos about medieval knights, armor, and battles. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our latest adventures. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the amazing world of history. Thanks for watching.